This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 33 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today we're talking about volunteer travel to help you and the world. I think it helps both parties equally, I suspect. Now, volunteering or volunteerism, volunteering somewhere else in the world while you travel, is quite a potentially tricky topic. It sounds like it's all, sunshine and roses, and what a wonderful thing to go out and help someone who needs help. And I used to think that was as simple as that, but of course you, over the years, hear horror stories about those Southeast Asian orphanages who truck in kids who are definitely not orphans, but they put them in there just to try and make some dollars out of the tourists passing through and stuff like that. And all of that is a topic for a different episode of the podcast, not today. But I just did want to acknowledge that is a sad side of volunteering around the world. But today I'm going to talk to three different guests about different ways that they have, so to speak, helped the world, my words, not theirs, doing various kinds of volunteering or who've worked in places where other people can volunteer. And they're all completely different situations and all just as valuable and all really fascinating, I think. So our first guest today is Serena Star-Leonard, who has done all kinds of volunteering around the world as part of a video project to make short videos of various voluntary and social good projects all around the world. And Serena talked to me about the very first time they did this, when she and her husband went into a school in northern Colombia.
We volunteered to do our first video, so we filmed these short 5-minute documentaries of community projects, and we were in Venezuela and we booked our first one in Colombia, and we basically crossed the border and then went to volunteer in this place for 2 or 3 weeks, and we thought we could volunteer and make our film at the same time, which would actually almost impossible.
Turned out to be tricky.
Yeah. But it was great because, we were new to it all, and the volunteering part of it kind of, I guess, gave us a relatedness that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So we went to a school in the slums in northern Colombia. So it's just 15 minutes out of town, and they warned us that some taxi drivers wouldn't take us there because it's too dangerous. So we found one that would after 2 that wouldn't, and we were with some of the other volunteers. And it's an amazing project. Like the guy who set it up, Oscar Cortez, he was homeless from the age of 7 to 17, like on the streets of Cali, which is like one of the roughest parts of Colombia at the time. And then someone gave him a chance to get an education when he was 17. So he took it, and then he's just been committed ever since to giving that same opportunity to other kids. So he set up these 2 schools in the slums in Santa Marta. And we went along to volunteer and just to kind of film it for our project. And we got there, like you pass through a mountain of rubbish, like a literal mountain of rubbish. On the side, the train goes past, but there's no rubbish collection. There's no none of the kind of services that you would associate with any community. And so we passed through, and the roads are not roads, they're just mud. So in the rainy season, it rains every day, and just the mud and rubbish just pours down the streets, and the kids can't go to school because they can't walk on the streets. And we get there, and all the kids come out and greet us, and they're used to having new volunteers come and teach. So they have kind of their mainstay ones who are there, like Oscar's there. At the time, he was there every day himself. And then they'd have volunteers that were there for like up to a year, and then the ones who would come just to maybe teach for a minimum of a month, basically. And so they'd come and they'd welcome us, and they're just really excited to see new people. And, they were kids. They asked them what they want to be when they grow up, and they want to be policemen. And I think actually all of the boys wanted to be policemen. And it was just amazing. Like just the spirit of the kids, and they're just great, fun, naughty kids. And they get school there for 2 hours every day in the afternoon, 5 days a week. It's voluntary, so they get to come if they want to, and they come by choice, and some of them are really bright, and it's the only opportunity for an education that they get. Like if they get sick, it's $3 to catch a taxi to the doctor, but most of them can't afford it. It's just extreme poverty. And so for us, that was quite eye-opening. We're both quite well-traveled, and we've been to a lot of places in developing countries, but kind of getting to know people in that context where life is just really, really tough, and kids own like one pair of clothes and no shoes, and they play football and they make footballs out of plastic bottles filled with sand. It's just tough. And like John saw one old man give this kid, there was like drunks in the street, and this old man like beckoned this kid over and, told him to sip this moonshine, and the kid's like, bleh, spat it out, and all the old guys are laughing. And it's just mad. There was one kid that I really was really fond of after about a week there, and I was like, and he's really smart. And we were talking with Oscar one night over dinner, and I said, what's the story with him? And he said, well, he's got 12 older brothers and sisters. His mum, she doesn't know who any of the fathers are, and most of the older siblings are hooked on drugs and alcohol. It's just thinking, I went home and just burst into tears.
I bet.
And so that's why he's there. He is saying, look, if they can read and write, they're better off than their parents were. They have more opportunities. There's the opportunity to go and work.
Yeah, they've got a chance to break that cycle, hopefully, but still it must be very tough.
It's really tough. And the first neighborhood he went into to see if they would have his school, they sent him packing with guns. Basically, they just said, no, get out of, we don't trust outsiders. So, he risked his life to set these up. And in this community, there was a mother there who just said, yes, I will help you get into this community, and I'll support it. And so the keys are left at her house every day. She helped them find the place to build the school. And, so the community embraced it, whereas the other one just sent him out and said, no way.
But he managed to get someone on the inside to help him out, so it's accepted.
Yeah.
Far out. What an amazing man.
No, and, we've filmed since then. I think we've filmed 30 or 40 short documentaries and projects like that. So that was the first one. That was the one that really I went, wow, and I carry that with me. That was an experience that it was eye-opening. It was absolutely, from one to the next, changed who I am as a person.
It sounds like Oscar Cortez, who set up this project, is amazing, but so is Serena and other people like her who volunteer in really kind of tragic situations like these. Later in our chat, Serena and I actually did talk about the trouble she has had in dealing with sort of taking all of these really sad stories on board. But something positive has definitely come out of it, because with her husband Johnny, they've set up the Travel Kids Club, which my son belongs to, and it's a club to help kids learn more about the world and also to start the habit of helping others. They send out packages of interesting and useful and fun things to do and read and look at. If your parents will have seen it, because they're heavy advertisers. If you've seen Little Passports, it's kind of like Little Passports but with a social conscience, and really great stuff. I'll leave a link in the show notes to the Travel Kids Club. Now, my next guest is someone we've heard from before. It's Diana Edelman from D Travels Round. Now, Diana worked for a couple of years, at least I think, in Thailand in the Elephant Nature Park, a park where a conservation park for elephants who've been rescued from really horrible situations. And I asked her to tell me, and therefore you, some of what she learnt there. Now, I have to warn you, if you're a bit sensitive like I am, some of the stuff she describes about the elephants is a little bit distressing. So it's a quick warning.
That's actually why I went to Thailand, was to do social media and PR for Elephant Nature Park. And for people who aren't familiar, Elephant Nature Park is run by Save Elephant Foundation, which is founded by Lek Tyler, and she is a renowned elephant conservationist. So, and she's extremely brilliantly smart too, because she knew I had a blog and she knew that I had a reach of other bloggers, and that talking to them, I could kind of help change the landscape of what travel bloggers are writing about in terms of responsible elephant tourism. So she actually took me very much under her wing, and I got to see the beautiful stories. I got to hear the stories of all of the elephants rescued at ENP, coming from illegal logging, street begging, trekking, circuses, any way an elephant can be used, they are also abused. And so she brought me in and showed me these beautiful elephants who, a lot of them had mental issues or have mental issues. A lot of them are really not trusting of people because of the abuse they've suffered. But here they are living at this park and being as free as they can be within the tourism industry. So I got to see that, but then I also heartbreakingly, but importantly, got to see the other side of it. So she took me with her to some other countries, and within Thailand. And I went with her to Cambodia when we negotiated the purchase of 2 elephants to rescue from from trekking, and brought them to the Cambodia sanctuary. So I was there, and we went to these little remote villages where, it's this conversation in Khmer, I think, for hours, and neither of us know what they're talking about. But eventually there's this handwritten document you sign, and then the elephant is yours. And then we went back and rescued those. But then I also saw the other side of it, where we went to a very remote training village in a country, and I saw the elephants being trained for the circus, and they had just been captured from the wild and poached, and they're babies, not in terms of the cute little cuddly ones, but they're young. They probably have just stopped nursing or didn't have a choice and have stopped nursing, and they nurse up until they're about 4 years old, and they're huge at this point. They'll kill you. You can be killed by probably a 4-year-old elephant. They're huge
still. Yeah.
But I saw them training the elephants for that, and the shackles and the hooks that went in their ears and the hooks they used to get them to go from little platform to little platform and do tricks. And then we went to another village where they had an elephant that had been poached from the wild, a baby, and the baby had just been put through the crush. And the crush is basically, it's known as a couple different things. It's called the crush, it's called the breaking, it's called the pajan. And the elephant is taken and shackled, and there are knives placed under the belly, hooks in the ear, and they are deprived of food, they are deprived of water, they are deprived of sleep, and they are in a little corral, and they are systematically abused and tortured until they learn how to accept riders, until they learn how to do these tricks, and until their spirit is broken. So these elephants are in this process for about a week, and it's a religious ceremony. It is something that the monks come and bless it. It is essentially not an elephant's rite of passage, but it's the breaking of this animal. And at the end of it, when that elephant is done, the bonds between the family, which are incredibly strong in elephants, are gone. And, you can see their eyes, and their eyes are vacant. And so we went to this little village, and this baby had just been put through the pajan. And if you actually, and I don't know if you can put links up, but there's a link on my site. It's about responsible elephant tourism, and a lot of the photos are from this, because the villagers wanted to show us how they trained this elephant. So this poor girl had already, there's a huge chunk of her nose missing, or her trunk. There's cuts all over her body, and they rope her back up. And they don't actually torture her in front of us, but they show us how they do it. So that was one aspect. And then I saw the other aspect in another country with temple elephants. And, we sat with them, and this elephant is chained on a chain that's maybe arm's length. And that is this elephant's life. She sits there, sways back and forth, standing in her urine, standing in her feces, eating corn. eating
What's
food.
the intention of that, of the temple elephant? They're like
It's religious. I believe it's good luck.
Right.
And I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
Sounds like bad luck to me, but yeah.
It's a very, like, in Sri Lanka, it's huge, and it's important. Temples the elephants. It's like I think it's almost a status, but I'm not sure. Like, I'm not versed in that. I just know that they exist and that we were fighting to help educate people to not support it. So there's that. And then there's the elephants being used. And I never made it down to Surin for this, but Surin, we rescued an elephant from Surin, and I did go to that. And she was a famous circus elephant that we rescued and took back up to Elephant Nature Park. But there's the big elephant roundup every year, and it's huge with locals, but a lot of Westerners go too, or a lot of, not Westerners, but just tourists come to Surin to see this. And it's sports, and it's an elephant buffet, and it's disgusting. I have friends who went, and the reality of what they saw, like, they have a blog too, and it's called Bounding Over Our Steps, and they wrote a whole blog post about Surin.
Right, I'll look it up.
So people don't realize that, that especially in a culture like Thailand where elephants are revered, they're also so horribly abused, because you just automatically, you go to a country like that and think, oh my gosh, of course they're taken care of. They're like the most majestic animal in the world, and they're the country's symbol. And
yeah. Why wouldn't you take care of it?
Exactly. And people don't ever bother to do the digging, or they know and they don't care.
Yeah.
Which to me, I think they're both
it's
terrible, awful, terrible. Yeah. So I saw a lot of different things, and unfortunately, a lot of the things, once you see them, you can't unsee them. And it's for as beautiful as my time at Elephant Nature Park was, it was also incredibly hard, because we're not just talking about elephants. We're talking about animal abuse and torture from every gamut, from the slow lorries that I saw something the other day, like, the slow lorry died because someone was ripping the animal's teeth out so people could take photos.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah. And stuff like that. Or the monkeys on the chains, or the monkeys that will steal your Cokes. It's because of people, because we breed this.
Yes, exactly.
We show that it's okay. And even beyond that, it's just the general, they just don't care. Like, we had animals that were just so horribly abused, or like smuggled into the dog meat trade or the cat meat trade that isn't really prevalent in Thailand, but they're smuggled across the border. So there's so much I learned, and so much like, man, I wish I didn't know that stuff, but I know it.
Yeah, you can't unknow it. That's right.
And I'm vegan now, and a lot of my friends are vegan, and I see this stuff in my Facebook feed, and I just can't even look at it anymore, because I know, and I don't need to see it anymore. I don't want to see it anymore, because it does a number on you. It is a very hard thing to stomach day in and day out. And I mean, I love Lek, and I admire Lek so much, because this is her life. And
she must be very, very strong.
She is the strongest woman I know, and she's so graceful. And even when tragedy or horrible things happen, she's able, she just gets this look on her face, and it makes her more determined to fight. So, I mean, it was incredibly inspiring, but just incredibly hard. I cherish every moment I had there. I know I had an opportunity that people dream of getting, and I'm so blessed and so fortunate to have had it. But there were definitely times where, I would just go home at the end of the day and just burst into tears, and just, it really defeats you after a while.
Absolutely believe that, because I remember seeing some posts on your blog, and, maybe with a bit of a warning at the top, I thought, okay, today I can't read that. Like, I know I'll be too upset, so I'm just not going to read that today. But,
for sure.
Yeah, but I have learnt so much from you. So,
I'm so glad. Thank you.
I think it's really easy to assume that because something happens a lot in lots of different places around the world, that it must be okay. For example, I learned from Diana that even allowing getting elephants to paint pictures is not is not okay either. It's definitely not a ethically responsible thing to do. Yet my local zoo, which I've always considered to be quite ethical, does it as well. So I'll leave links to a few of those posts that Diana mentioned in our chat there in the show notes. And if you're curious, then do read some more. It's a really important topic. And people can go to Elephant Nature Park to volunteer. I'll leave the link for Elephant Nature Park in the show notes as well, in case you're keen. Now, my final guest today is Audrey Wanders, and we chat about WWOOFing. And it's something I've known about for a long time, but if you don't know what WWOOFing is, I will tell you it is not really anything at all to do with dogs, and I'll let Audrey tell you the rest.
I actually spent a little bit of time last summer woofing. I don't know if any of your guests have talked about that, or if you have that where you are.
Yes, I know about it. Yeah, I think you can do it in Australia too, but I certainly know about it. So it's like working on, what does it stand for? I think willing workers on organic farms, I think. Am I right?
Opportunities on organic farms, something to that degree.
I was so close. So where did you go woofing?
It was more of like a staycation, but it was a couple hours south of me on some local farms. I wanted to explore more of opportunities to support local organic farms in the future and maybe participate in a CSA. So I wanted to do that. So I stayed on farms. Really, it was just like day explorations. I don't think I had the goal to stay overnight and travel that much. But now that I've done it a couple of times, I'm definitely interested in using that as a form of travel. So not just like, okay, we're going to go camping. Like, let's kind of bounce around between these farms where just for your manual labor, you're going to be able to stay there. Or at least you'll get some kind of support while you're there. And because it's worldwide, that's something that I was exploring in order to figure out how to, get to Hungary or wherever I want to go someday. It would be really neat to do it in that way.
Oh, absolutely. Because then not only it's a more meaningful kind of trip, and you'll get to meet some local people and get to know them better. And obviously it's good for the budget. So
right.
There's kind of lots of positives to something like that. And I think it's like such a well-organized form of volunteer. I mean, it's been around for a while. And that like the people involved are really genuine and stuff. So I think it's, that would be a great way to go. You should definitely do that.
Yeah, I haven't had a negative experience. It's been really humbling, and it's really fantastic to meet some of these people and really experience where your food comes from, and eventually be able to support them as well if that's something that would work out.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, I had some friends in Europe who had woofed in Italy and Slovenia, and I don't know where they ended up after that, but they raved about it.
Yeah, I met a guy who was just traveling on his motorcycle. He was there woofing at a farm nearby, and he said he just didn't want to ride for more than 4 hours a day. He was like, that was kind of his limit on a vibrating motorcycle. So
fair enough.
So he would just kind of pick places and just bop around, and I was like, So just seeing that wanderlust in other people was also really inspiring.
I have never woofed, but one day I would like to. I actually had to go away and check up on what the acronym stood for, because I was so sure that I had heard it being called Willing Workers on Organic Farms, and I learnt quite a lot when I did research this. It turns out that it started off originally being called Working Weekends on Organic Farms, but then people used to want to spend more than a weekend there, so they changed the name to Willing Workers on Organic Farms. But then having workers in there became a bit of a problem with immigration authorities when people were going to volunteer there, and it sounded like they were going to work. So then they changed it to Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. But Australia's a little bit different, and we still use the Willing Workers on Organic Farms thing, apparently. Not only that, Australia has the highest number of woofing hosts anywhere in the world. So there you go. I thought that was quite curious. And yes, like Audrey, I would like to do some more of that at some stage. Now, if you have your own volunteer experience you'd like to share, or you have some questions about volunteering, I have a new group for us to chat about this stuff and anything to do with thoughtful travel on Facebook. So if you head to facebook.com/groups/thoughtful travellers, and because I'm Australian, there are 2 L's at the end of travellers, near the end, and join up, and we would love to chat. I'll put a link in the show notes to the Facebook group as well. So thank you very much for listening to episode 33, and a few places you can find some of our guests today are at travelkidsclub.com for Serena. Serena Star-Leonard also has all kinds of interesting stuff online. She has an interesting program called Retire in 12 Months, and if you are curious about that idea, You can find her at in12months.com, which is in 12months.com. Diana, you can find at dtravelsround.com, and the Elephant Nature Park is easy to find as well at elephantnaturepark.org. And I've got a couple of links I'm leaving there from what Diana mentioned as well. And finally, Audrey Wanders is at, very logically, audreywanders.com, and I'll leave a link to some woofing resources as well. I have had some really beautiful reviews on iTunes lately, which really make my day or my week, in fact. So do hop into iTunes and leave a rating or a review, which will help other people find the Thoughtful Travel podcast. Thank you in advance. You can find me on Twitter at Amanda Kendall and use the Thoughtful Travel Pod hashtag. And as I said, have a look on Facebook either at Not a Ballerina or come to the Thoughtful Travellers Facebook group. See you soon. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.
Jackrabbit FM. For your ears.
Who is that? Hi, Podcast.